Today is January 10th, 2020. My name is Kara Neurohr, and I'm a library professor in the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the Oklahoma State University Library. And I'm here today with former president, Dr. James Halligan. This is our fifth and final interview.
The last roundup.
The last roundup in our series. And I've enjoyed all of the interviews, and thank you again for participating.
Well, I'm flattered that you take the time to do it. Thank you.
In our previous interview earlier this week, we focused on student scholars and scholar development, diversity, and governance. Was there anything that you thought of later that you thought we didn't cover but we should have?
No, I think you do a good job. I would give you an A+ for that. You were very patient, and so thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the library.
Yes.
During your term as president. There's a common saying that the library is the heart of the university.
Yes.
Is that something that you would agree with from a president's standpoint?
Yes, and let's see, so the minor story, it is a minor story about the library while I was president. There was an American Association of Research Libraries, AARL. Don't know
AARL, yes.
Is it still the same? I don't know.
Yes, Association of Research Libraries.
There you go. Okay. And we didn't have, I think it was 2 millionth volume we were trying to work on or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't have the rating that we felt comfortable with. And so I asked Johnson was the dean.
Ed Johnson.
Ed Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do here? And so we purchased an old grocery store up by the high school. It had been on the market, and it had some structural problems associated with it. It was the reason it was on the market. But we got it at what I thought was a pretty good price. And then we pumped the books into it. And so we got beyond, we then met the requirements that we needed that Dean Johnson said we had to meet.
Mm-hmm.
He was driving it. All I knew is he said, look, I got to have more room. And so we purchased that, and I think the library still has it to this day. I think it's still an integral part of it.
Yes.
I drive by there every now and then, and I see vehicles, etc. And I assume I've given David Peters a lot of stuff, so I assume it's up in that building. I don't know. It's got to go somewhere. But it allowed him to move the library forward. Let me just say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing I would say about the library is that the Board of Regents, it was fascinating. They had always since Dean Stringer, who is an OSU graduate, Harvard Law School, a very successful lawyer. He had an interest in the library, strong interest in the library. And he transmitted that to members of the board that he knew well. And so a certain percentage of the budget each year had to be allocated to the library. And in some years that was a challenge for us to be able to do that. But the board wouldn't do it publicly, but privately they'd say, Halligan, did the library get their requisite share? So it was when we began the budgeting process, that was something that was locked down, so to speak. But I was not opposed to it in any way. And the building is, when people think of Oklahoma State, they either think of the library or they think of the Student Union building. But the library is just the dominant feature, which it should be, I think. And I hope we can somehow, this Wikipedia and all this information get on Google, I still think there's something about just sort of walking around inside the stacks as I did and stumbling across things that I had no intention of reading, and because I was in the wrong place and sort of looking and there's an interesting book to look at. I want to make certain that students actually get to do that as an integral part of their educational experience, because I think it can change them. It certainly did me. There's a few things I read that, coming from a very parochial religious background, it certainly enlightened me that other people saw things differently.
So your experiences were those when you were an undergraduate student that you
Yes.
are referring
Yes.
to?
And then when my sister was killed in an automobile accident, that was sort of traumatic for me, in that I was probably closer to my sisters than I was to some of my brothers. That's probably normal for males. And so that caused me to be more reflective. And so I found myself in this section of the library concerning philosophy and people who had thought about these questions a little deeper than I had, being busy in chemical engineering. And so, and it was just because the library was available. And I remember I asked one librarian, and she said, well, I go there. And so I went there and wandered around, read a few books, took a few home, read them. And so libraries, I don't know whether I can say this accurately, but I've frequently thought that, when everything else is gone, culture is what's really important. As you know, I think it eats strategy for breakfast. That's one of my favorite sayings. And the repository of our culture really is the library. And so we need to make certain we sustain that. And of course, I'm a C-SPAN guy, and so I watch C-SPAN when Anna's watching other programs, and they frequently are interviewing people and about books and things like that. So that's I'm trudging through a George Will book now, and that is a heavy slog to get through, but I'm working on it. So I think I was always sensitive to the importance of the library.
Do you have favorite authors?
Probably. There's a guy by the name of Steven Pinker who's at Harvard. Just wrote a book called Enlightenment Now, and I've read a lot of Pinkers, and then I've read a lot of biographies. I've read Hamilton, and I've read books about Washington, and probably 20 or 25 or something like this about Lincoln and things like that. That's just mine. But I haven't been as good lately. I try to read something from somebody that I disagree with, which I think is very important. And I also try to listen to things. That's why I like C-SPAN. And so they'll have people with whom, at least initially, I philosophically really disagree. But then I try to sit there and listen to them for an hour as they're asked questions and comment. And that always sort of improves it's sort of like my interaction with Lewis Blair. It was good for him and it was good for me. To see, here's a good guy and he really sees the world differently than I do. But I'd say Pinker is probably my favorite, and then George Will would be second. I like his philosophical outlook.
Do you read paper books or do you read them on a device?
No, I don't care. I've tried reading them on my Kindle and so on. And I have to have the tactile feel, and I have to be able to go back after I'm reading along and say, "Now, did I really?" And so I have to go back and look at something. And my son marks up his books. I don't mark up my books. I think they're so precious that you shouldn't deface them, because I know I'm going to give them. I'm not going to keep them because I don't know. And I think she commented when we moved on the president's house, I think we gave this library 250 books or something like this. And so we'll be doing that again. And so I don't want someone to have to see what I thought was important rather than what they think is important. So,
okay, great. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate hearing about the library from you. Okay, so we'll move into your retirement from Oklahoma State University. When did you and Ann decide to put roots down in Stillwater?
Well, the people in New Mexico certainly were kind enough, as I now say. I actually retired from the university from New Mexico State before I came here as president.
Okay.
The board made some special allowances.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually a president. I was actually an employee of New Mexico State and an employee of Oklahoma State at the same time for a while, till I met all the necessary conditions, etc. So they were really good, and we would go back once or twice a year and see all of our friends and so on. And but we loved being there. But growing up in Iowa, we sort of actually like it where it snows every now and then, where it gets colder. Being in the desert where it rains 8 inches a year, and that may be in a half a dozen events.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of we like Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
We liked Oklahoma, and Ann had been very involved in the community. She's been chair of the United Way Fund, chair of the hospital board, chair of this and chair of that, Payne County Youth Services, et cetera, et cetera. So she was really integrated into the community. And the minute we retired, we were surprised. We were invited to join a couple of dinner clubs. Mm-hmm. Where you have to have an invitation, they have to vote on you and things like that. And so we were pleased and flattered that they would invite us to do that. And it was New Mexico is too far from Iowa. Mm. And we still have ties in Iowa, mm-hmm. so we can drive to Iowa in a day. Mm-hmm. So that was important to us. So we just liked it here.
What was it like? You had 2 grandchildren who came here?
Let's see. Two of my grandchildren attended here. Mm-hmm. We have a whole bunch of Razorbacks also because we were at the University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so they graduated, et cetera. So, but 2, both Jennifer and Rachel Halligan graduated from here, and they wanted to be very low, not to cast a shadow while they were here. So we worked hard on trying to facilitate that. Mm-hmm. Because they just wanted to be, mm-hmm. didn't want people asking, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So, but we're proud of it. And they love it here. They loved it here. That was good. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So in 2002, you retired, or was it 2003 when you retired?
Well, actually 2003, but okay. 2002 I announced. And it was a question of sort of facilitating Schmidley's arrival and so on.
Mm-hmm. So there were noted accomplishments during your term here: increased enrollment, student success, improved retention and graduation rates, improved scholar development. Are there any other big areas that come to your mind?
Well, we previously discussed if we didn't improve athletics, we were out of the conference.
Athletics, yes, okay.
That was awfully important, and what many people characterize as the first comprehensive fundraising effort in the foundation. Mm-hmm. And we started out with a goal. You always start out with a goal that you can meet. So we started out with a goal, I think, of 160 million or something like that, and then we raised, I think, 270 million. You always have to be careful with those numbers. You need to say this the right way. People like to give you things that are testamentary gifts. When they die, you get it. Mm-hmm. But they want to be recognized for the gift while they're alive. It just makes sense, sure. Right? Yes. Just makes sense. And so I'm sure there's parts of that campaign, even now, where they have not come to fruition, let me put it that way. But nevertheless, you announce because they want, and it's a non-revocable commitment on their part. Mm-hmm. But they just want to keep it and get the interest off it or whatever until they die. Mm-hmm. But that took a lot of time. Bringing dreams to life, we called it. and worked out well. So it was a significant time input, but I would say enrollment in athletics were absolutely crucial. We didn't succeed there. I was gone. It should be gone. There was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay, so what was your first big activity after retirement? Was it your Fulbright or the teaching?
No, let's see, it was a teaching first, but Ann and I think we went to 16 countries, just boom. Okay, we went hither and yon and hither. Went to Ireland, looked for, there's no Halligan Castle or anything like that. I had kissed the Blarney Stone in a previous visit, so I didn't kiss the Blarney Stone. But we went around Ireland. And then we went to Norway and went around there. And golly, I can't even remember, but we went to Spain for 6 weeks or something like that. And, so we went hither and yon and enjoyed ourselves, and when I was talking to someone last night, I said, when we travel, if I can stay in a hotel where we are the only Americans, I like that. When we went to Paris last time, we stayed in a little hotel. 2 people couldn't ride on the elevator. Only 1 person could go up on the elevator. Then you have a feeling that you're actually sort of immersed in their culture, get a feeling for what they're trying to do. And whenever we would take our grandchildren. I think I've told you this, but we had a deal with the grandchildren. The deal with the grandchildren was, Ann is the good cop and I'm the bad cop. Okay, that's the role we play as grandparents. And so if they weren't pregnant or had not impregnated anyone, all right, if they were boys, they couldn't have any ornaments hanging from anywhere. If they were girls, they couldn't have it. They could only have it in the ears. Okay, they had to have reasonable grades and good deportment, and no drugs, no tattoos, etc. So the grandfather would lay all these things out, and then you could go anywhere you want to go
After
when you graduated from high school.
From high school.
Okay, so we went. We went to Thailand. We went to Spain. I'm trying to remember. We went to Bruges, Belgium. I don't know. They wanted to shop on the Champs-Elysees. We did that. So anyway, we did that kind of stuff. So we tried to bribe our grandchildren to be good, at least through high school, and then they get a great trip. So that was sort of part of it. And then with I think Thailand was first. I had met this gentleman who was the president of Prince of Songkhla University in Hat Yai, Hatyai, Thailand, southern part of Thailand. He came by the office I was president, and you see a lot of people when you're president that sort of want to have their picture with you, and so they're justifying their trip. Let's be straightforward. We signed a little agreement that it just says we're going to cooperate with each other and so on. And you see lots of presidents signing those things, okay? That's just, you can say to people, this is what we were doing. This is why the state or the foundation paid for these expenses. But anyway, so this guy came by, and every now and then, just you connect with someone more than just the passerby that's coming through your office. So he had a son who was going to school in Arkansas, and I said, look, I'm in the phone book, or here's my card, and I know you're a long ways away, but if you don't know what to do, well, you can call me, because I knew some people in Arkansas, and knew the governor, and blah, 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 and, I can just... And so he transferred his son from Arkansas to Oklahoma State. And so that sort of enhanced the relationship. But I hadn't seen him. I just saw him at one time. But I don't know why we fell into that conversation. And so it turns out there's a Muslim insurgency in the southern part of Thailand. And if you're going to travel there, the State Department requires that you that you recognize the situation and you have to. What it basically says is a dumb thing to go there, and if you go, we don't have to bail you out. Okay, let's get right down to what it was. That's the way Ann characterized it. But he's a great guy, and so in any event, we went there to Hawaii, and when we landed, we could see as we were going through immigration, we could look out to where the luggage was, and there were guys with AK-47s walking around. And so Ann was a little bit taken by that. But we had a wonderful experience. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was like 3 weeks. I would teach, I think it was, so he had picked out, if I bored you with this?
No,
Okay.
this is interesting.
Okay, so he had picked out like a dozen members of his faculty. This is a big university, law school, medical school, the whole deal. Okay. He had picked out a dozen members of his faculty. He had one was a dentist, one was a pharmacist, another one was a computer science. But in any event, picked out a dozen people. And the universities at that time in Thailand, all the employees were federal employees. It would be like you would be a federal employee. And he didn't like that because he didn't have any stroke. So he wanted to change it to the American model, where you had a faculty council and you had all this sort of business. And so Halligan would hold forth on Friday and then Saturday and Sunday morning sometimes about this is the way you organize, this is what a faculty council does, this is how you're elected, blah, 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 blah. This is how the staff are organized. This is the way we run a university in the United States. That would be my simple way to describe what the course was. And I sort of enjoyed it, and they were kind, and then we would fly off. Turns out at that time there were 5 individuals who were graduates from Oklahoma State, who were presidents of educational institutions in Thailand. And so before I went, I think was it Hargis? I don't know. Maybe it was Schmidt. But in any event, they said, as you're going, well, why don't you... this one university president had a heart problem. He couldn't travel. So we were going to recognize him. And so we went to Chiang Mai, flew to Chiang Mai, and we sounded the gongs and so on. And I had a formal, and he had the people there, a formal presentation of you are a distinguished alumnus of Oklahoma State University, and your picture, one of them, So we went through all that. And then we went to Meizhou University, which is a fascinating place. These 2 guys, they were both graduates of Oklahoma State. Meizhou, when you go in there, there is, I want to give due respect here, but a diminutive individual in bronze with a cowboy hat on at the entrance. And it turns out they are the cowboys at Meizhou University. And Dr. Thep, T-H-E-P, I think it's the way, but anyway, wonderful man. And so we went there and saw their due and what their, all of their accomplishments and so on. Wonderful people, really moved by them. And so, and they were very, very sensitive to our welfare at all times. We could sense that. Whenever we traveled if you're in the northern part of Thailand, you're good. But if you're in the southern part of Thailand, it's sort of exciting. They kill foreigners, okay? So, so we would always travel in a van, and there'd be 2 people in the front, then Ann and I, and then 2 people right behind us, because they normally would shoot you from a motorcycle. So they had to get alongside of you to shoot you, okay? Because we were, and it never really bothered me, so to speak. It was a delightful experience, and then that dozen came back over here, and Ann and I interacted with them, and they got a degree from Oklahoma State, and it was all. But it was so Thailand was a delightful thing, and then one of the grandchildren picked Thailand, so we went back. But we didn't go to Hawaii, but we went to the Phuket and all those places that they like to go. Then, so that was 1 year, and then I knew Fulbright when I was in Arkansas, Senator Fulbright. a delightful man. And so I wanted to go back to Europe in a Fulbright. And again, is really involved in the community in many, many ways. And if I didn't want to, if I've told you, you'd kind of stop me. So anyway,
It's fine.
okay, she didn't want to go for a year. I want to go for a year. And she has a lot of friends and et cetera. And so then she didn't want to go for a semester. So then I think Lewis helped me out here, but I found the name of the guy that ran that damn program. I mean, that really ran it. Okay, I mean, there's a board and all that sort of stuff, but there's always some person that actually is, cutting the wheat. And so I found him, and then I took him to lunch. My son at that time lived near Dulles Airport in Virginia. So we would go see grandchildren, things like that. Whenever I go, I take this guy to lunch. Mm-hmm. And his wife was named Elizabeth, and she was an artist. And so we went to one of her, we got our shovels out and went to work. Be straightforward. So the bottom line of it all was, he said, God, Halligan, we normally eat at least a semester. I said, well, I can't do it. It's not going to work, okay? So he said, well, there's something called the Marshall Fund that I never heard of. But, there's always a little wrinkle if you're running a program. And so Germany was very grateful to the United States for the way we treated them after the Second World War. We had the Marshall Fund. We sort of rebuilt Germany. And we didn't stomp on their necks at the end of it. We tried to bring the society back. And so once this one guy had made a lot of money selling books and things like this, I don't know, in Germany, and he gave money to the Marshall Fund. And so he said, well, Halligan, you could go over there. I think we were there like a month. In Osnabrück, never heard of it before in my life. It was wonderful. I love that sort of thing. So we went to university in Osnabrück, and I gave a few talks, but the essence of what the guy who gave the money wanted was, I was fascinated. Once I didn't know this before I got there, but then I sort of picked it up. I got to have one story. I'm going to sneak in at the end, and I'll talk faster if I can. But
no hurry. There's no hurry.
Okay. The bottom line of it all was he felt, the guy who gave the money to the Marshall Fund, mm-hmm. and he said, you can spend it how you want, but they hoped he'd give more, so they were trying to be sensitive to his needs. And that frequently in the past, in the 1900s, Germany had some of the best universities in the world. And now they don't have anybody in the top 10. And it was his contention that the failure of that the universities are funded at the federal level, and that the rectors, they call them, not presidents, rectors, the rectors were not sufficiently sensitive to the needs of society because they were protected. And therefore, I don't know how he knew, but we had raised this $270 million, and he was impressed with it. And so I went around and talked to rectors. Ann and I would jump on the train and go wherever they tell us. We'd pop up in some town, Wertbergen or something like this, And so I would meet with the rector and whoever he wanted, and we'd sort of talk about how one raises money from the private sector. And then I thought being sensitive to the private sector made the university much better because you were connected to the world, and the world thought you were connected to them. That you weren't an island or floating in the sky somewhere. And it was surprising to me in that I can remember one guy, we were at a table sort of like this, and the other man was there, and a couple other guys. And he said, so, okay, Halligan, how the hell would you do it? If you were here, what would you do? And I said, well, the first thing you got to have is an alumni association. You got to know who graduated, where are they, who's doing well, what are they in, okay? And then you got to start building those relationships. Take them to lunch, take them to dinner, whatever, and don't ask them for anything. until you feel pretty confident that you've got a good, strong relationship. And then he said, so how would you ask them? And I said, what you got to figure out is what they are interested in. Don't tell them what you are interested in. Find out what they want, what is a burning passion for them, and then how can you make that an integral part of what will improve your place.
Mm-hmm.
But don't say, I'm here to put in a museum of modern art when they're an engineer or something like this, okay? So that's the next step in the process. And you've got to wait to ask them. Wait until they know you're going to ask them, and so you can sort of sense that's the moment. Don't walk in and say, I'm here to get money.
Mm-hmm.
And so
early in that relationship building process, is part of that finding out about their experience as a student at the university.
The whole thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like me with Chuck and Barney. Who else did you know? And it's amazing. A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, mm-hmm. and then you get all these guys together, etc. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is a many-year project. Mm-hmm. But the first thing you got to do is start.
That's how you do it. Mm-hmm.
You got to start. Mm-hmm. And the first thing you got to figure out who from your institution is prominent, that has graduated from here, and has some love for the institution, mm-hmm. And feels they were treated well, and they love Professor blah, 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 well, they were there, et cetera, et cetera. And so we went around, I don't know, Ann should be here. 8 to 10, something like this.
Did she sit in on all of these meetings with you?
Yeah, we were always together.
Mm-hmm.
We were always together. Not always, I mean, she went shopping and things like that. But no, when we jumped on the train, we were together. I didn't want her. So we're just that way. Mm-hmm. And but it's, the culmination was sort of interesting. Long gone far away, I passed the Princeton exam in German. You had to do that when I got my PhD. You had to have a facility in 2 languages. And so I didn't have the time, so I just bought a bunch of cards that had German words and American words, and then I'd sit there and just look at them. And so I was able to pass that exam. So I had an extremely limited facility in German. So we were in Berlin, and they had gotten 35 rectors or something like that. A lot of rectors in the room. Mm-hmm. I had a guy sitting alongside of me that could translate back and forth to German and American, but I could pick up a little of it. And sort of in the one of those moments that sticks in your mind, this gentleman, very, very impressive individual, stood up and almost clicked his heels and said, "We are rectors. We are not panhandlers. We don't stand on the corner of the street and ask people for money. The job of the federal government is to give us the money." And I thought, we got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. We got a long way to go. But they were trying to sort of get there. Mm-hmm. And I'll conclude with that adventure, which was wonderful, in a moment that I also will always remember. One of the vice president's name was Roger, and so the last night we were there, we went out to dinner, just Roger and Ann and myself, and me, I guess. And we had enough wine to sort of loosen our tongues, but not so much that we would be a hazard to anyone driving. And we really gotten to know each other well. He was a very good man. And so I said to him, as he was going to take us back, and he said, "Jim, let's just drive around. Let's just drive around for 45 minutes or so and just talk. I like to just talk before you go." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Sure." And so as we were driving around, I said, we've been over a lot of Germany on the trains, okay, during this adventure. And I've noticed that there are quite a few American bases, and I have a son who's in the Air Force and things like that. And I said, 55, 60 years ago, we met in not fortunate circumstances, but it's worked out pretty well. In other words, we've been able to establish a good relationship and respect, mutual respect, and so on. But I said, if the Germans were still in Oklahoma, I'd probably say to them, you know, guys, I think it's about time for you to go home. I think we can handle it over here.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we've been here a long time.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that? And in a chilling moment, he said, I'd be opposed to that. I said, Roger, how can you be opposed to that? And he said, Jim, what he said was, Jim, it ain't over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brought to mind, Ann and I had been in a restaurant, probably the only Americans there, and it was a private room not too far from our table. And some gentlemen had come in, and they were ordering pork knuckles, which sort of, I had enough German to sort of realize what was going on there. And they sang Deutschland über alles, which was sort of the song of the Nazi regime, and Germany over everybody. And I said, God, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it ain't over.
Wow.
And so in retrospect, the country's so well run, the trains are on time and everything's clean, and it's just boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, and so when you come back to the States and you see how we are not near as efficient and organized, and we got some sloppiness associated with the way we interact with each other and so on. You sort of said, well, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's not so bad. Then let's see. Then I'll be done with my foreign. So I always wanted Anne to go to Bulgaria. She was not excited about that, but
why not?
Well, she had this vision of a pretty primitive country, and when we were in Thailand, we at one time were where they have their toilets were just a hole in the floor. Mm-hmm. Okay, and she that did not excite her. Mm-hmm. she likes better accommodations, as do I. Mm-hmm. So in any event, I said, so we need to go to Plovdiv, Bulgaria. And she said, so in any event, once again, being a wonderful individual, my best thing that ever happened to me in life, she was kind enough to accompany me. So we flew to, I found a guy on the chemistry faculty at the University of Plovdiv. He was a Humboldt winner. That's a prestigious award for chemists and people like that. So I'm shoveling it in his direction, and so we're making a little progress. And and I don't want to be there long. I just want to go in and sort of see your deal. I'll give a talk or two or whatever you want, mm-hmm. and so on, and that'll sort of be it. But I want we're going to be there a few days because I want Anne to sort of get a feel for this. Plovdiv is really a Thracian city. Thrace was sort of part of the whole Greek culture. Let me put it that way. So he was very kind in that, and one of our memories was he made arrangements for us to stay at the Bulgarian Academy of Science in Sofia. And I had something called a Zlatnite Kupolu, but there's some sort of like those onion domes that you see on Russian churches, mm-hmm. in Sofia, and I wanted Anne to see those. And so we went around Sofia a little bit. Not particularly, it's gritty, but they were under communism for a long time. And so we spent 2-3 nights or something like that at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences and visited with a few people and this sort of stuff. And then he came with a driver and took us to Plovdiv, and it was wonderful. I thought it was so good for Anne in that they had arrangements for a little apartment for us, and it was on the 7th floor, I think. He sort of rode a freight elevator. It was typical Soviet housing, and I wanted Anne to sort of see that. In that the first morning she went in to take a shower to bathe because we've been traveling, and the way you cleaned up after the shower was you took a mop and you mopped up the water and poured it into the stool and flushed the stool.
Huh.
Okay, that was the one drain was this was the stool. And she had not experienced that before, so it was a real adventure for her. It took her a little while to embrace it, but she came right around, and we made a lot of progress. And so I had arranged my principal lecture, I'd say. I was going to give it in Bulgarian, and I had. When I ride my bike in the morning, I'd been riding my bike, and when I was president, I used to ride 12 to 15 miles in the morning, and I went east, and so I was sort of out in the country, so I could listen to tapes and things like that when I rode my bike. Had a little miner's lamp I used to leave in the morning, and so I had been working on my Bulgarian. And then whenever I was outside or anything like this, I'd be playing Bulgarian tapes. So I thought it was not, it was on the bare edge of acceptable. Probably not acceptable, but anyway. So before the class, they had assembled some people, and I'm interacting with the students in Bulgarian. And they're sort of, oh my God, what is this? And this is a wonderful moment. We all have these things in life. So I'd spent some time, my talk about Bulgaria, where they were, and the demographic issues that they face, and so on, because they face serious demographic issues. They're not having many children, and people leave Bulgaria as soon as they can to go to parts of Europe so they can get better salaries. So they have a population problem, and but it's a beautiful city, just wonderful. It has lots of Roman ruins, and has an old Roman theater, like you see. It was just spectacular. And Ann and I sat in there's a park off. I went to Rotary while I was there, and went to the park and sat there, and it was just really great. But in any event, so here I am, ready to give my lecture. I wasn't in 5 minutes. Somebody raised their hand, a member of the faculty, and said, "Would you please switch to English? We have such a few times that we can hear someone in English, and we're trying to improve our English. Would you speak slowly in English?" How do you like that?
All that preparation.
How do you like that? So, and we went to Istanbul. I had Anne's such a wonderful person. We took the midnight bus from Plovdiv to Istanbul. And I don't know if Anne told you that adventure, but we had a real adventure there. Then after we were done, I said, we really need to go to Varna. And of course she had, and she had really warmed up to the people and the food, and they were the one bit of graffiti that we saw in all of Plovdiv was there was a wall about half the height of this there, and in English it had 46 wasted years! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! 46 years was the length of time they were under communist rule.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
So I said, this is a beautiful country, and so let's we don't want to fly, for God's sakes. Let's take the bus to Varna. And I said, we'll go through Burgos, and I knew some things about Burgos and so. And once again, this lovely lady. So we leave at 5 or 6 in the morning. We moved to a hotel that had a tub and preferred. So we moved to a hotel in Bulgaria, downtown on the square, for the accommodations were more appropriate. Let me put it that way. And I loved them. But anyway, so we're taking the bus across Bulgaria, and she got a chance to really sort of see it. It was interesting. They had 2 drivers and a lady who collected the fares, etc., on the bus. Sort of like being in an old-timey Greyhound where you stop quite often. And we stopped at a place that had the right kind of toilets. And so we could attend to those matters and had a little lunch and so on. And then when we stayed at the Hotel Splendide, okay, which was a lovely Bulgarian thing. And when I checked in and I started talking to the lady in Bulgaria, she said, "Where the hell did you learn that?" anyway. So that was, we had a great time there in Varna. It's just on Black Sea, and it's just a wonderful place. Just exquisite. And they're great people, et cetera, et cetera. And so then we flew out of there to, we went to Vienna, and then we went to Budapest, and then other places. So that was sort of the experience. And then so I came back. I'm ready to go to the Senate. You ready to go to the Senate?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Okay, so you're teaching in Thailand, your interactions in Germany from the higher education realm. Do you know if anything changed in either of those places from what you've heard?
I know I've interacted, I haven't lately, with the individuals from Thailand, and that worked out very well. We were there in Germany. Another thing we discussed was they were charging a very nominal, very minimal tuition fees. And as you know, I'm a Robin Hood guy that says raise the tuition fees and subsidize those who don't have the means to attend. And so I would say, this is wrong. It's not what you should be doing. Because a lot of their students were just sort of hanging around. They didn't have anything else to do. And so they had some students that were there 7 or 8 years to get a degree. And I said, this is bad. And particularly for the engineering students, they need to get out there and get with the program, and you need to track them, and et cetera. They're very good in engineering. They're not great. They're not comparable to Oklahoma State. This is just me walking through the labs. So, but I thought they were pretty impervious. Then I saw, after we got back, I think it was the same guy, gave $100 million to a private university pretty close to Osnabrück, where we had been located. So, and Roger had asked me, what do we do to get additional recognition? And I said, money. I said, money. I said, Roger, you gotta start an alumni association right now. Just, when he said, Jim, we don't know who they, I said, you gotta find them. Or start right now and track them. Track the ones you got. So they were pretty impervious. They were pretty confident they were making Mercedes Benz, and they were the best technical products in the world, and I thought they were heading for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Now they were very good,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't think they were going to be able to compete. Once you bring on those Asian universities, those guys are something. Those guys are the real deal. Particularly in Shanghai, in Singapore. Singapore, man and I were in Singapore. Wow. I would say a negligible but impact in Germany, and modest impact in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Good people, very good people,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to make that move to where the president's got some stake, and it'll just take somebody who doesn't mind being unpopular.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only way you're going to do it.
What is so remarkable about the Singapore university system?
Oh my. Lee Kuan Yew was their leader who brought them out when Malaysia said we're done with you, and they sort of little tiny island community there that they said, okay, go ahead and be yourself. There's too many Chinese here and we're Malays, and we've been to Malaysia, and OSU has quite a few distinguished people in Malaysia, and so I'm not doing this justice, but just to move on. Lee Kuan Yew was their messiah, and he was just wonderful. I mean, I've read several books of his. Now he was he was very close to a dictator, but he was a benevolent dictator, such as he would say, okay, we're going to have subsidized housing, but one floor can be Malay, one floor can be Chinese, and one floor can be Indian. You cannot have all Malay in one building, all Chinese in another building. We're going to learn to live with each other. Okay, that was the way he was. You could not chew gum and leave it on the street. He was famous for that. But he took them from nothing to an absolute world power in terms of technology. Mm-hmm. And here's a little tiny city-state that now is rivaling Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And he did this, and so I read a couple of his books, mm-hmm. as to how he did it, and he had the courage to be unpopular.
Could you spell his name for me?
Well, let's see. It's Lee, Lee Kuan. I'm going to go Lee Kuan Yew. I'm going to go with YEW. I don't know.
Okay, that's phonetic.
But he's the founder of Singapore, or of the Singapore state. Okay. And we were there. We had been to Japan a couple of times or something like this. Mm-hmm. And so we knew of the rape of Singapore, but the Japanese treated them very unkindly. And so we saw those facilities and things like that. So we weren't there very long, as I remember. Mm-hmm. But let's see. So that concludes. I see. Now you're asking a question.
Okay.
Try not to just blather.
Okay. I'm not sure where this fits in, but the leadership class interviews, you and President Hargis did some interviews. Was that while you were in the Senate or before you did the Senate?
See, I'm not on board. I'm not.
Did you do like interviews with people, you and President Hargis? You were teaching students through like maybe President's Leadership Council, PLC. Yeah, okay. PLC. And then there's some interviews, I think, in the collection here that you did and President Hargis did.
Yeah,
that were recorded.
I'm on board.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering about that. I don't know much about that.
Well, I started out, I just think Casey Strom is unbelievable. I'd have her as
When did you first meet her?
Golly, I can't remember when I did.
Was she a student when you first met her?
You'd have to ask her.
Oh, okay.
Have to ask her.
Mm-hmm.
Because she, but in any event, so in any event, I was in the PLC, and there were a lot of people like Larry Bump was on the board. We had socially interacted with him. They had a place in Santa Fe and so on.
Mm-hmm.
His wife got cancer, and was very close to her. We stayed in contact. We stayed with him during a really tough time. Okay. And just to get to the bottom of it. And so we became good friends. He was the CEO of a corporation, and they had their own jet. But I felt, oh, she graduated. I felt that additional recognition was appropriate. How's that?
Okay.
And because I had been president, I bumped into these people, so I had a pretty long list of people that I thought might be a good idea to chat about. And we love this place. This is our place, and you hope that most people won't give you the money before they are talked to. They'll give you the money after they are talked to. Okay? And so the more you recognize them, the greater the chance that they are going to have a warm feeling for this institution, the people associated with it. How's that?
Okay.
You got it, right?
I think I do.
And then I had some students that had been student body president and things like this, and I wanted to interview them because I wanted some of the students to see who these people were and to give them confidence that through these portals have walked these immortals. Okay, so that was why I did that, and Hargis was President Hargis was so he had said to me one time, so what the hell you want? What do you want to do? I said, well, I don't want to be paid and I don't want to be employed. Okay, I don't want that. But I said, just low level. I said, we want to travel. If we don't travel now, we might not be able to. So I don't want to be tied down, but doing some of these sorts of things, etc. So I don't know whether I told the Anna Tubby story, but in any event, Governor Anna Tubby of the Chickasaws was getting an honorary degree, and President Hargis, I always need to say President Hargis, sitting up on the stage during commencement is sort of boring, to be honest with you. Just name after name after name, goes on and on and on. And so he said, well, after we've made him an honorary doctorate, then we'll escort him off the stage and you can interview him. Okay.
Oh.
So I did that for a few people. I said, I don't want to be on the stage. I've worn that stuff enough. Thank you very much. No, I've been blessed to do it, but to everything there's a season. And so it was interesting. So I said to Governor Anna Tubby as we began, we had been friends previously, known each other pretty well. And I had he asked me to go to his casino at the Texas border. And because I'd never been in one, I said, I don't waste any money. He said, Jim, just go and walk around. And so we did. Ann and I ate there one time, and it was amazing to see Social Security checks just going boom, boom, boom. It was awful. So I said, Governor Anna Tubby, it's interesting you spell your name Anoatubby, but people always say Anna Tubby. I said, is that correct? And he said, no. I said, no. I said, so what is your name? He said, my name is Anoa Tubby. And after that, I always pronounce it Anoa Tubby. That's what it is in Chickasaw, I guess. And so anyway, I've done some interviews, haven't done one of them, but we've been doing other things. But haven't done anything in a while, but that's to everything there's a season. So I did quite a few of those. And hopefully it will assist the university in the future that those people might be generous to the foundation or want to have something in their name, whatever. That was the whole purpose of it, because they were really outstanding individuals. I mean, unbelievable. And because of my time, I would know who they were. Where later people would say, "Who's Larry Bump?" I mean, and you say, "Well, he has a winery in California." You say, "That's a pretty good start." Okay, so that was sort of why I was doing that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just
Okay.
gave me something to do, and I thought it was something that should be done.
So how was it connected to the PLC?
I would tell the students they should
you would?
watch. We would put it up, and they had to watch one before the next class.
Oh, okay. All right. So they were watching them.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
I was not a successful strategy on my part.
Why not? Would they not watch them?
That's correct. At least
Freshman students.
They just couldn't squeeze it into their schedule.
Yeah. The timing, maybe, where they were in their
That's right.
academic
That's
program.
right. And here's an old fuddy-duddy. Why do I want to listen to this old fud? You know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Does anyone in particular stand out that you interviewed? Thinking back.
Well, gee. I'll see if I can think of his name. There's a songwriter from. I watched the Garth Brooks on. Did you watch that?
I did. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll think of it. Maybe I'll think of his name, but it'll come to me sometime.
Would it be Tim Dubois?
Tim Dubois.
Dubois. Okay.
Yeah, it was Du Bois when he was here. It was Dubois now.
Okay.
So if I told this story, but so Hargis, they gave him an honorary degree. They take him off the stage. Halligan's in the men's basketball locker room with a TV. Okay, I interview him because that gives them something to do while they're finishing up the thing. So I'm burning up the time, and they like it, and we like it, and it's good to have it in our archive and so on. So I said to Dubois, I had met him several times in Nashville and things like that, and I said to him, "So how did this really happen? I don't know if you've heard this story. I'll try to give it very briefly." He was all he had to do was complete his thesis, which he'd mostly written for a PhD in accounting. And he went home to his wife and said, "I always wanted to write country music.
Oh my goodness.
And we are moving to Nashville." You got to admire that. And so the bottom line of it all, making it a short story, they moved to Nashville. They have all the travails that you would anticipate. He's doing, along with Hendricks, Scott Hendricks, those two are both OSU guys, and so it's sort of going Arista Records and et cetera. But it is obvious that his wife doesn't appreciate the Nashville scene as much as he does. And so they get a divorce. And he said, out of that, I wrote my first hit record. Have you heard it?
I don't know. What is the name of it?
She got the gold mine and I got the shaft.
Oh, I have heard of that.
How do you like that? How do you like those apples? And he said it was a number one, and it sort of bailed me out. But he's a very colorful individual.
I can see why that interview would stand out.
I was pleased to be able to do it, and I don't know, it was probably an hour or something. They sort of gave a signal and said, we're getting done out here.
Were they usually tied in with some kind of honor that they were receiving here, or were they just not necessarily?
Oh, not necessarily, but those were. But if President Hargis wants something, I would try to do it if I. But the condition was our travel and our other life comes first. If it fits in nicely, we're happy to do it. If not, why? We're flattered that you think of us.
Is there anyone that comes to mind that you haven't interviewed yet that you would really like to interview?
Well, I wish I had interviewed Henry Bellman.
I would have loved to have met him.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, Bill Clinton is the most accomplished individual.
We have at least one interview with Henry Bellman in the collection.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Jerry Gill did that or someone else, but
what a remarkable individual, and loved this institution. Was proud of this institution. Was not afraid to say, "You guys can be doing better."
He definitely had multiple impacts.
That's right. That's right. So, let's see. Who else would I have liked to have interviewed? I don't have a name that comes up right now.
Okay.
I did quite a few.
Okay.
And I guess if I wanted to do one, I could I mean, Gary Clark's been very generous. He says, just let us know. We'll do the deal. But,
Okay.
Been there, done that.
Okay. All right. I think I'm ready to move to the Senate.
Oh, it was a great experience.
Okay.
It was wonderful. Let's see. So, we retire. So let's just, year one, we travel.
That would be 2003?
2003, I think it is. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, we travel. So here's what happens. I don't want to get my dates all straight. We travel. We have Thailand. And I teach one semester here in the College of Education. Okay. So then we travel and blah, blah, blah the rest of the time. So then we do Thailand, then we do Germany, and then we do Bulgaria. And then we come back, and I'm sort of bored, and they come, let's see. So let me give you a little preamble, if I may. When I was president, the University of Oklahoma paid about 10% more than we did for faculty salaries and staff salaries. And so I kept trying to figure out how they do this. Well, it turns out that, and this is not the sole, but it certainly was significant. It turns out that the hospital here is a trust, and the simplest way to say it is, if you go on the hospital board, the mayor tells you, "Don't come to me for money. You make it work over there. You make the arithmetic work. That's your job as a board." Okay, no deficits. So being on the board has some significant responsibilities. It's all right. So I went over to see Jerry Moeller, and I said, what sort of uncompensated care do you have? He said, we have about $12 to $14 million a year.
Wow.
I said, that's sort of what I thought. I said, I'd done the homework. I had some other people help me out. Don't overestimate it, but I knew it was an issue we needed to. And I said, so that's cost shifting. He said, yes. I said, we're the principal cost shift standing around here, aren't we? He said, you certainly are. Well, OU didn't have that because they're in a much larger area, and there's lots of other people that they can shift those costs to. But we are the big dog in town. So the mayor was kind enough to appoint Ann to the board. Because I said, that over there is having a significant impact on our university. On
our health insurance cost.
On our ability to pay people what we think we ought to pay them.
Got it, okay.
Just don't shift that $12 million to me, reduce our costs, and I'll give everybody a nice raise. Okay. So Ann was on the board, and she would share, we would discuss it, and she was doing a magnificent job of learning how the ins and outs and so on, and not getting down into how to do appendicitis operations. But,
the management
trying to make things work. And Jerry Moeller was a wonderful guy, wonderful man. I think when Ann got on there, they had like 60 days of money, and that was it. If it didn't work, they had 60 days in the bank. And so in any event, Ann became chair of the board, and we sensitized them to the issue. We couldn't. You can't really change the issue, but you can at least let them know that we're just not sitting over here saying, "Golly gee, it's raining on us again." And a little hint of maybe we could try to enter into a relationship with somebody else. Okay, so, but we couldn't. I mean, politically we couldn't. But in any event, you have to sort of rattle that around in the weeds. And so one of the things that became abundantly clear was when they tried to, Ann and their group tried to hire people, they would try to hire a physician, and they would have a liability tail. So a physician who delivers babies, I'm acting like I know more than I do here, but they have a certain liability until that child is 18 years old. And so you would be trying to, and people with cancer operations and all this sort of business. And so people could sue them for malpractice. And there was a statute of limitations. So you could say he operated on somebody at this time, and they got 6 years to, so therefore they got a liability tail associated with them when you try to hire them. Because the next place says, I'm not going to keep that liability tail. You got to buy it to get this guy. And so, and some of those numbers would be, a big one would be $500,000. Okay. So this was a big deal. And so I was really sensitized to that. And then workman's compensation. I think if somebody's hurt, we ought to take care of them. And let's see, I need to be very clear. There are lawyers that just specialize in suing doctors and suing for workman's compensation. I don't hold that against them. That they operate under the rules that we have in our society. Therefore, if they're playing within the rules, then we're supposed to change the rules if the rules aren't right. And so, and I would always say to the students, don't bitch from the bleachers. Don't spend your life bitching from the bleachers. One time, a pastor from Southeast Oklahoma, I had given a talk. I told you.
I haven't heard this story.
Okay. No. But anyway, I came into the office. I was president at the time. I had given a talk somewhere. I don't know, but anyway, I was honored to go and give talks here and there. And so I said, "Don't bitch from the bleachers." As part of it, I had 5 things I was going to emphasize, and blah blah blah. And so if something is wrong, you always get ahead of it at the beginning. So when I first got there, I said, "No, Pastor, I want you to understand, I said bitch from the bleachers, but I have to talk to the students in the language that they fully understand. And this is fully within their vocabulary of use, all right?" And he said, "Oh, no. He said, I gotta have a copy of that because I have to do something Wednesday night and I don't have a thing prepared." So anyway, so I would always say, don't bitch from the bleachers. I would sometimes go to coffee at McDonald's or something like that. There's a group that sits there, and by and large, they would say the people down in the Capitol, they're a bunch of yo-yos. They don't know what they're doing. They're going up and down, and they never get anything done. They're just a bunch of yo-yos. And I could do it a lot better if I was down there, and this is what I would do, and so on. And that's just part of our freedom of speech and the way we interact with each other, and et cetera. So the Senate was tied at the time, and between the Republicans and the Democrats, and the seat for Payne County, this seat's District 21, had never had a Republican in its history. Had been a Democrat all the time. I think that's technically, it might be, I thought the initial one was not of either party. And he sort of swung it for OSU to get the campus away from Perkins, but I'll leave that to others. But in any event, it had never been occupied by a Republican. And I had to decide. I had been a Republican and a Democrat, an independent. I've been everything in life. And so I had to sort of decide which side of the fence I was on. And I came down because of the experience we have had with abortion. Um, uh, and fortunately, our son survived, and we had a challenging for our first son. They recommended abortion, and I said no. Um, that was a significant issue as to which side of the fence you were on. Almost everybody on the Republican side were opposed to abortion. Now, the death of the mother and things like that. In other words, there was some allowances I would make, but fundamentally opposed to abortion. And the other side was right to life. Okay. But in any event, so I decided that I was a Republican. And had changed my registration from independent. I always thought the president of the university should not be with either political side. I was very strong about that, both in New Mexico and in Oklahoma, because
Obvious reasons.
If you think about it a little bit, you realize why that's the case. And so the bottom line of it all was a prominent person in the Democrats had talked to me about it, and then the 6, something like that, senators took Ann and I to lunch at Mexico Joe's, one of their little rooms, chatted with Republicans, chatted with us about it. And so we decided, why not? We're sitting around here. I said to students and bitch from bleachers, like, get out there, Halligan, and do it. You're going to have to eat your own corn, okay? And so we said yes. It was a great experience, absolutely. So I said to them, so how much is this going to cost? And they said $400,000. I said, you got to be kidding me. $400,000, that's crazy. I mean, at the time, that was, I don't know, $1 million today or something like that. Oh. But anyway, it was, so I said, so what's the deal? And they said, we'll match you dollar for dollar. Every dollar you raise, we'll match you. I said, okay, so I got to raise $200,000. They said, yep. I said, okay, shoot the gun, here we go. And so we ended up spending $408,000. Our opponent, we knew, lived in our neighborhood. His name was Murphy. There's a little Murphy building downtown. There's a Murphy Street right next to Walmart, the Western Walmart. It's Murphy Street. His father had been in the Senate for a long time. They were very well known politically, etc. And he called us early on and said, I'm not going to oppose you. And then he decided to do it. Oh. And the interesting part about it was we have no facts to back up this statement. So this is hearsay in its highest level. But they told me that the trial lawyers, and I don't hold this against them, they would go over they'd hire someone to read all the Regents meeting minutes, both Arkansas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. And they would look for other things that I had done. And then in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, they would throw it all at us, okay? So they said, if you go, that's what you have to expect. So I said, Ann, just don't read the papers the last 2 weeks. Put on your glasses, we're gone, okay? We had heard that he didn't want to run, but then he was a local judge here in the courthouse, and allegedly, with no proof on my part, the trial lawyers said, okay, if you'll run, we'll cover all your expenses, and we will retain you as a consultant in our law cases. So you can expect about $100,000 of income during this time. And the governor was a Democrat. I have no basis to verify this, but if you lose, we will make sure you're a judge somewhere. So we were aware of these comments on the street by what we deemed to be knowledgeable people. And so it was spectacular. They said you have to knock on doors, and we had never knocked on doors. I've never knocked. I've asked people for money, lots of people for money, but I never walked up cold to a strange door and knocked on it. And then they said you need a driver, and we said we don't need a driver, for goodness sakes. And they said yes, you do. And they said, we had a Lexus and I have a pickup. I always drive a pickup. And so they said, you don't use your Lexus at all. Use that pickup.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so we had the pickup in the middle of the street with this Army veteran who was our driver and loved doing it. And he would, we never went in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Always just knocked on the door and visited at the door. Went in only twice I did for veterans who were in wheelchairs and couldn't come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would say in 90 seconds, he's timing, and in 90 seconds he would call us on our cell phone.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so whoever was blathering on, telling us about this or that, or the GD government was frequently part of the conversation. We'd say, I've got to take this call, and it broke the conversation, and it's been a delight to visit with you, and you could move on. So, and then he always kept his eye on Ann to make certain nobody grabbed her or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us could take you to the first door we ever knocked to say, oh my gosh, are we actually going to do this? And we decided not to knock the prosperous parts of Stillwater or Guthrie, but to knock the more impoverished parts. And we did Langston. We knocked Langston. It was the African American community. Mm-hmm. Knocked Coyle. We went to Cushing and knocked all of Cushing. So we went to those places where they were surprised that we were at the door, mm-hmm. because you realize if you get a vote that he's going to get, then he's got to get one. He was going to get one, so he's got to get one to catch up, and another one he's got to get two to get back for your one. Mm-hmm. And so I would say it was the best thing we ever did, no question about it. We say that Ann and I both knocked on 4,000 doors. We knocked it was amazing. And people are so flattered that mm-hmm. you will knock on their door. It was not unusual at all. Particularly in the African American community, they would say, no white man's ever come down here and asked for my vote before.
Was this a daytime activity or an evening activity?
No. We never, after dark, we stopped. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. They had to be able to see you on the porch. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you always step back from the door. Mm-hmm. You have all these things become obvious. You step back so they can size you up. Mm-hmm. And they will frequently look out a window. Yes. If you'll get back far enough so that they can look out a window to see who you are, then they're going to decide whether or not they're going to come to the door. Mm-hmm. And you never leave anything on the door at the front. You leave it at the garage, because a lot of people just go in and out of their garage. They don't go in and out of their front door. Mm-hmm. So you learn all of these sorts of things. But it was a marvelous. And we came away with a decidedly different feeling. There's about 80,000 people in this senatorial district. We came away with a decidedly different feeling for who's actually living here, what sort of conditions, and what are the problems that they perceive. Now, the Richies, we thought we already knew what they thought. So that was, we knocked where we thought they were predominantly Democrats, mm-hmm. just because of previous. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was 58-42 or something like that we won. And he became a judge in Washington State. And I think they're happy there. So it sort of worked for both of us. And I had said a couple of things at the very beginning. Everybody wants to box you in. They want you to know what's your position on guns, and what's your position on this, and what's your position on that. And so I said at the very beginning, I will not promise anybody anything to get elected. And I won't tell you how I'm going to vote. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'm actually going to listen to the debate and then decide how I'm going to vote. And that was a lifesaver. But I stuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you want to know how I feel about something, that's different than my telling you how I'm going to vote before I've heard the debate from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I would, when we had that meeting at Eskimo Joe's, I'll only do it. They have a big they have a big committee for appropriations.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end, all senators were on it, but at the beginning, a lot of senators were. There's too many people in the room to have any. You knew there's going to have to be another group somewhere to actually decide what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have 15 people sitting down trying to carve something up. And so I said, I want to be chair of the Appropriations Committee for Higher Education, Public Schools, and Career Tech. You can toss some other things in there if you want to. That's all right with me. But if I don't get that, I'm not running.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they kept their word. And I would. It was a delight. I'm delighted that I did it. I would not have wanted to have lived and not have been in the Senate. I don't do anything for 12 years. 10 years is the maximum limit. So at the end of 8 years, I decided not to run for re-election. I had people who gave me money and said, "Please run for re-election." I said, "I don't think I'm going to do it," but I said, "If I take the money, I'm going to give it to Oklahoma State." And so we had some expenses, but we decided on the expenses we just gave $80,000, $82,000, something like that. We gave to Oklahoma State. I think that's for the McKnight Center. I don't know, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They know much better than we do what are the pressing issues they have to address.
Mm-hmm.
So we gave everything that was left in our campaign fund. We just gave to Oklahoma State. And in terms of sort of singular events, I realized quickly that there were quite a few people there, I didn't say this in the right way, who this was the most important thing that had ever occurred to them in their lives, being in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
They really loved the title senator.
Mm-hmm.
It just increased their hat size. And they hoped that this would lead them on to other things, such as being a lobbyist for some group. A lot of them do that. Or some corporation hires them in order to be an inside political consultant, etc. So they have a drawing to determine, both on the basis of seniority. Then you have a drawing as to where your chair is in the Senate area. I got to tell a Boone Pickens story. It just came to me. I don't know what time we got, but
We're good. I'm
okay.
good. No problems.
But in any event, so if you can quickly tell someone's ambitions, because if you win the lottery, you move forward in the Senate closer to the person who's up on the dais maintaining order,
Mm-hmm.
because the television cameras are focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not interested, then you move backwards. And if you can I was actually able to get up against the wall where they can't shine, they can't see what you have on your computer screen.
Aha. Good place to be.
So you could see the migration of people as they got seniority, and fate favored them in terms of the lottery,
Mm-hmm.
where they were going, so you could sort of interpret. So I was just one up from the back on the wall, which was the best position I could get. Had a wonderful lady there by the name of Deborah Curry, who was a graduate of Oklahoma State, and she was kind enough to be my associate. Had lots of people come and try to badger me about this issue and that issue, and I would always say, "I won't tell you I'm going to vote.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know when I listen to the debate. Why would I tell you how I'm going to vote and get on, and why do I sit there for the debate?"
Mm-hmm.
The lady lady who ran the cultural activities for the state and I became very good friends. And she was a wonderful young lady, but I tried to gently give her my views as to how she could be more effective. Um, and I said, you got to raise hell. You got to find some rich people that got a lot of money and they think we should be supporting the arts and have them ring the phones. Okay. And I said, if you ask me what do you got to do? You're over here and you want me to give you an appropriation. I'm not going to give you an appropriation. I'm not going to get any heat. Come on.
Would this be the Oklahoma Arts Council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll think of her name, but she's a wonderful person. And it was a good experience. I would say so. Let's see a couple of things I want to say about the Senate. Number one, this is a point of vanity, sheer unabashed vanity. They would occasionally, you'd like to say that you voted on everything on a matter of principle. But politics is the art of the possible, not the art of the perfect. Politics is what you think you can actually get done. Okay? Not what you know should be done. Mm-hmm. But can you make any progress towards that? Because the chance you can get all those is pretty small. So I, on occasion, when I was absolutely confident the bill was going to pass, I might vote in a way that people would say, what the hell is Halligan doing voting that way? But it was because someone had talked to me, and this is a very important issue to them. It wasn't an important issue to me. I didn't think it really made that big a difference. And then I can go on and on, but so they would say, what do you want, Halligan? And I would say, I want a rate edge, EDGE. And they would say, what is that? And I said, well, Governor Henry put $100 million, más o menos, in this fund to the state to be involved in trying to encourage high-tech industry to locate to Oklahoma. And they said, do you know who chairs that committee? I said, yes, I do. They said, that's Gene Rainbow. And I said, Gene Rainbow is the one who banked first throughout Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I don't know, he's got 50, 75 banks or something like this. Very, very good individual. He and George Kaiser are just wonderful people. I should tell the George Kaiser story. I think of it. But in any event, they said Gene chairs that committee, and he sort of has a special feeling for that $100 million. And they said, so if you want to do something about it, you just call him. You just call Gene. We hereby authorize you to go ahead and call Gene. And we had met before in other circumstances and so on. He's a somewhat taciturn, but a good man. Good man. And so I started trying to build a little relationship, not to run over the top of the barricade in the first go, but to sort of get to know each other and so on. So the bottom line of it all was there was a conversation, probably in the 4th year or 5th year or something like this, where I said, Gene, I can double the money tomorrow, okay? And then I'll even get more of that $100 million. I said, it's going to take you, at 8% a year, it's going to take you a long time to get there, okay? I said, tomorrow we can do it. He said, how's that? And I said, the endowed shares program. I said, both OSU and OU have these people lined up who said, if you'll match it, they'll give you money for an endowed chair or a professorship, whatever, endowed businesses, okay? I said, it's a matching deal. So I said, you let me get to this, and we'll take that $100 million and make it $200 million, boom, Okay. Now I said, Gene, let me be honest with you. You'll probably get a little haircut on the way by. I mean, it just does. You got the governor in there, and you got the Senate pro tem, and you got all these people. It's probably gonna. I doubt if it'll emerge without having a butch haircut. I mean, but I think we're going to be pretty good. I think we could do it. And he finally said yes. Well, then I tried to be quiet about the fact that I thought we had an agreement. I wanted to wait until late in the session. Late in the session, sometimes you go into the night, and people sort of get tired and they're ready to go home and so on. And I knew if we made an appropriation, everybody's ears perk up on appropriation. So I said, I think we can move this from one account to another. We'll just move that $100 million. And then I think we can get to it. Okay. And so the pro tem agreed to it. So late one night, we got it. Okay. Well, then I had to be very quiet because other people are going to say, Halligan got all this money. What the hell's going on here? I mean, why wasn't I consulted? Blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So all the time I was in office, I never discussed this. Now, it turns out that Hargis and Boren suddenly had all these professorships and blah, 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 blah. Okay? All of suddenly, hey, look at this. This is great. So I waited, I suppose, out of office 3 years or something like that. And we were at Rotary, and somebody asked me something. It was the first time, I don't know why I did it, but I said, well, this is what I did. I got $100 million. Mm-hmm. So I was proud of that. Mm-hmm. And others may question the way we really did it, but I thought it was okay, and the ultimate objective certainly was very meritorious. Then one other thing that was interesting, and I had to do Boone Pickens, but mm-hmm. One other thing was interesting during this time. Lee Denny was in the House, and she was representative from Cushing, but we were great friends, and she's a wonderful lady. Just wonderful is not adequate to describe her. She's a veterinarian and so on, and but she has a big heart. And we had too many people incarcerated. I don't think there's any question about that. And no system can ever be perfect. And so she wanted to pass a bill whereby we would look at questionable cases and determine whether or not an error had been made. And so a couple of years, if you're the committee chair, you can refuse to hear a bill. And the odds of it being dead are 98%. They can override you, but it better be pretty tasty if they're going to override you. Mm-hmm. So several occasions I can't resist. But anyway, the guy from the House came over and said, Halligan, you're not going to hear my bill. I want you to hear my bill, blah, 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 blah. Then he said, I'm a member of Mensa. And I said, I am too, and I'm not going to hear your damn bill. So Lee passed this bill. She's a wonderful lady, and she would pass them over to. I always took her bills, and she always took my bills. I thought we had enough laws. We didn't need a lot more laws. Mm-hmm. It's my fundamental position. So, but she was just very good. And so I asked a local judge. In fact, we were with them socially over the weekend. So if I pass something like this, how much money is the state's going to have to investigate to see whether or not this is a reasonable case? I said, how many people in prison will say, I deserve a review of my DNA evidence. And he said, all of them. I said, how can you say all of them? I said, that's going to soak up a lot of money. I said, we need money, but we can't give teachers a raise, and now I'm going to start soaking up all this money. I said, I think I got to kill this thing. I said, this is not good. Now, this is the guy, he sleeps with a loaded revolver in his bed because of the people that he, as a judge, has had to send up the river. When they get out, they might remember him. So you have to really salute judges and what they do, and that's a tough job. But anyway, I really respected him, OSU graduate, really thought he was a great guy. Also talked to the guy, the OSU guy who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the time, just to get some perspective. But anyway, Lee, to her benefit, was just wonderful, and she just kept pressing me. So finally, I something called the Innocence Project, but I decided the Oklahoma City University Law School is the most liberal law school in the state. Most people would say that without question. A bunch of libbies. And so we collectively, although I would have my axe in there and chopping away to try to keep things in bounds, decided that if you wrote a letter, okay, to your senator, that he could send it to the Oklahoma City Law School, and their students who were just learning, they would look through it. It would be something for them to do. They'd have a little case that they could look at. And then they would decide whether or not there was any merit. So that's step one. Then step two, I decided, was we sent it to the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. And solely based on their discretion, they would decide whether or not the state was going to invest money into this program. That is clearly unconstitutional. There's no doubt that is unconstitutional. But I thought so many people wanted to get the pressure off them about this that they'd go ahead and pass it. Okay? And they did. Okay? And the amazing thing about that was that I would say in total, while I was there, in the 3 or 4 years after it was passed, we'd get 3 or 4 letters a year. It was amazing. And they were almost always handwritten. And my assistant would be, my associate, Deborah Curry, would almost have tears in her eyes, you know. And you'd say, hey, we gotta look into this. And then we send it over, you know, so we went through the process. And so I got a little, Lee did too, we got a little plaque and so on. But among the bushel baskets full of plaques that I have, that one, and I still haven't given it to David Peters.
Nice.
Still haven't. So now let's go to get Boone Pickens. Okay. Can I go there quick? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I have some more things we'll get to also.
Okay. So Sam Walton, of course, comes from Kingfisher, Oklahoma. And Ann and I knew them, etc. And he had his picture in the Capitol. And he was on one side of a door. We went into a significant door, big thing, Sam. So I said, yeah, we ought to have one of Boone. I mean, come on, look what Boone's done for us. I mean, giving us $500 million at the time. I mean, you know, I mean, good gosh. And of course, it was a little controversial. And so the previous Attorney General's wife was chairing the Capitol Preservation Committee or something like this. And we're going to do it for somebody who's alive, and maybe there's been some divorces, and you know, we had some rocks in the road, but we just kept shoveling. So, well, he deserves it. And so, so the bottom of it all was we got it over the hump. Had to get somebody appointed to the committee, and that we sort of figured out Governor Fallon was. But anyway, we got done.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line of it all was Mike Wimmer, who's a okay. Boone approached Boone, and I think it was like $35,000, $40,000, something like that. And so Ann and I tossed in some, other people tossed in some. And so then Boone said, well, have him fly down and I'll interview him. And so he did, and he pencil sketched him, and I had it in my office, which is over at in the student union. And Manny said, I said, I'm not using my office. It's a waste of time. Okay? And I don't want anyone to think that because of my positions, I've been in it. So he said, well, your desk is in there, and your chair is in there, and I think Boone's in there. And I said, Manny, just take them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to be there when you take them. Just take them. So I don't know where it is. I suppose David has. I don't know where it is. It's a wonderful pencil sketch of Boone Pickens. It is a spectacular thing. So we're going to have, he paints him, does a great job, I think. And Boone was married to Madeline at the time. I don't know whether he knew Madeline or not, but she was a wonderful lady, but she was from California, and
she was the
animal rights.
Equestrian animal
rights. Yes.
Okay.
And so Ann and I was kind enough to fund a lunch for all the OSU people in the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court, and you name whatever, Governor Fallon, and blah, blah, blah. In the Senate lounge. We had them stacked in there like corduroy. And we were going to give them lunch. And Boone was going to be there. Now, if you want to talk about errors in a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give you a 100.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I don't know whether I would do it differently. Okay. I knew Madeline just enough. Ann and I had been to the ranch, and I don't know, anyway, I said, God, that's a dicey deal, because they were going to have a press conference. I thought, God, if Madeline started talking at that press conference, it's not going to be good. Not going to be good. So, as we were having lunch, I said, Boone's going to have a press conference, so we can have very brief remarks here, okay, because I know you got other things to do and so on. And so he made very brief remarks, and I said I'd like to introduce Madeline and see if she has anything she'd like to share here, okay, because the press aren't there. Oh my God. She went into this animal rights business, and you're not treating your cattle correctly, and it just went on and on and on. Well, some people got up and walked out.
Ooh.
Ann and I had spent some big bucks for this lunch. But in any event, they then had a press conference, and she didn't say a word. So you say to yourself, if I hadn't done it then,
what might have
if that cork is going to come out of the bottle, it's better to come out of the bottle when the press aren't there than when the press are there. So, and in any event, so we got the picture up, and it's there now, and it's Sam's on one side, Boone's on the other. I think it's perfectly appropriate.
Very nice.
Yeah. And I thought Wimmer did a good job, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty much the Senate. I don't know. It was, I don't know. It was just, nothing else comes to mind at this time.
Okay, well, let's move to some of my questions.
Sure.
How would that be?
We'll knock them out.
Okay. In your interview with Bill Welge, when you spoke about your experience with legislatures in several different states, I think you said you thought you had a feeling for that, but that was incorrect. And I think you mentioned that it was a real adjustment, like becoming an elected public official from what you kind of expected. Could you explain that a little bit?
It's one thing to ask for money. It's another thing to have to decide how you're going to spend the money.
Ah, okay. That's what you meant. All right.
It's just that simple. When you're down there, I interacted a little bit. Well, Missouri tiny bit. Arkansas very significantly. New Mexico for 10 years, and here for 8 or 9 years, whatever it was, 8 years, you are trying to figure out how do I, what part of their constituency would be very supportive of what I'm trying to ask for, okay, and how do I ensure, like when I was president, we would go around Oklahoma and recognize important people in their hometowns and invite the press and so on. Ann and I would go, we'd have lunch, invite the bankers and the lawyers and all these sort of people, and we say, here's representative so on, and we have a little plaque of some kind we're going to give him for wonderful things he's done for Oklahoma State, and we're so pleased and proud to have him there, and all this sort of stuff, you know, and all that was going up. And that was part of the getting the appropriate response when you're going in for something else. Okay, so I hadn't realized how I don't want to use the word skullduggery, but so I guess I should tell the George Kaiser another error on my part. Teacher salaries were terrible. The amount of money, just the wrong time. There's no money at the state level. We were cutting everything. The oil was in the tank, and it'd gone from $100 to $30, and everybody was laying everybody off, and there was just no money. There's no money. And so I said to Senator Ford from Bartlesville, now he was chair of the Senate policy, and I was chair of Senate money for higher education and public schools. And so we were great friends and still are. And so I said to him, we got to go to the people and get the money for our teachers. We're losing them all to Texas. And so George Kaiser was then and is now, I think, the richest person in Oklahoma. And I just had a very, very brief interaction with him. But I knew his brief lieutenant, Ken Levitt, is his man. And so I told Ken, we need to pass a sales tax, okay, solely dedicated to improving public schools. If we get enough money for public schools, higher ed can get some money, but you can pump water from one pond to the other. So the bottom line of it all was, I said we got to have this, and so we had a meeting in Tulsa. Mr. Kaiser came in Senator Mazzei's conference room. Came in with Ken Levitt. Came in just like President Argus or somebody coming in. Wonderful man, and I said to we call it necessary pleasantries, and I said, well, we're really here. I think something like 0.6 of a cent. As I think is a maximum. We go further than that, the cities are going to kick our backsides, okay? Because they got to fight us on it. But I said, teachers are so important, they're not going to want to fight us for a little bit. They're going to want to fight us for a lot. So I think 0.6 of a cent is just about as far as we can go. Maybe 0.5 cent, but something like that, okay? Sales tax solely dedicated to teacher salaries. It's a terrible thing to do, and the poor people will be penalized because they're the ones that pay most of the sales tax, but they're the ones that are getting very bad teachers right now. We got so many people in there who are not appropriately certified teaching. We are doing worse things to them. If they knew, they'd say, I'll pay that 0.5 cent, but give me a good teacher for my children. So that was the essence of the pitch. And we were in there for 2.5 or 3 hours or something like that. He's a very insightful individual. And of course, nobody was recording anything. But he said, so how much is this going to cost? I said, well, we don't really know, but I think $175,000, $200,000 will get you the signatures. You pay people to stand outside of places and say, would you sign this petition such that we can have this initiative put before the people? And so I said, something like that. And then it depends upon how much the other side mobilizes, they're going to mobilize. I mean, they're not going to say, isn't this a wonderful idea? Okay? Because the cities are very dependent on sales tax. So they're going to say, so I said, I don't know, another $500,000, something like this. Now this guy's got $7 billion, so I mean, you know, it's not. But you know, there are moments when you know. He said, I got to talk to David Bourne. I said, well, okay, it's your money. I mean, he's got the goal, makes the rules. So I said, okay. So make him get to the bottom of it all. He talks to Bourne. Bourne says there should be money for higher ed. They raise it to a penny. I call Ken Levitt, and I wish I had recorded it because I said, this is an absolute disaster. A penny is an absolute disaster, Ken. We're going to get something kicked up above our ears, okay? This is not good. And I said, I have to be honest with you. Picking David Bourne as a spokesperson is just awful. There are more OSU graduates in the state of Oklahoma than OU graduates. You got to remember that. Get these retiring Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or somebody like that. Don't get David Bourne. Well, it's their money. And they disagreed with me. And we lost big time. We lost big time. Bourne put in, I think, $250,000 of his own money. But David Bourne didn't realize what people said to him said about him when he wasn't in a room. I told Ken that. And he had been such a successful politician for so long, they thought I was wrong. But I regret that I wasn't more firm when it first came up to just say, okay, I'm out if he's in. I didn't. So, what it could have should.
Okay. Let's see. I think I have a note here that 57 bills came through the appropriations for public schools and higher education, or 57 bills sponsored, 27 were based on education. Does any of that ring a bell? Okay. All right. Any legislation come to your mind that you feel impacted OSU?
Well, the chairs program, and every time I see
chairs.
all these people with these names on these chairs,
Okay.
And I don't expect them to know that story because I was reluctant to share it for so long, and I don't want Senator Duggar for them to say, "Look, you guys already got yours."
Well, I'm glad you shared that interview. Another thing I've seen is that I think you've said that it normally takes 2 or 3 sessions to do something really significant.
Yeah.
Do you feel like other than the endowed chairs, do you feel like you're seeing any fruits of your labor when you think about it?
Well, I would give myself a B- or maybe a C+ as a senator. There just wasn't any money.
Okay.
There wasn't any money. It was all a rearguard action to protect what you got right now. Now they did. There was some move to make me chair of appropriations, and I have to say that I said no. I said, guys, I'm 78 years old. And this takes a long time and a lot of intensive effort. And I just, in other words, they said, so how would you do the budget? I said, I'll give it to you in 1 page. I gave it to them, okay? but I didn't want to put up with the harassment and the just the level of activity associated with that. Now, it turns out one senator was really very powerful senator, was very insistent on that, and I finally said, I'm not going to do it. So I preferred to be sort of a I thought I was adequate in representing this constituency in the terrible times we were in, but they're just the opportunities for new initiatives. I mean, we had Senator Tom Coburn, a graduate of OSU, come to our caucus, the Republican caucus, and say, you guys, you need to cut the budget even more, and future generations will be so thankful that you have cut it as much as you have. So that was sort of the environment in the room, and frequently in the caucus, it was not unusual. They'd say, does anybody disagree with this? And one hand went up, and that was Halligan. And I would say, I disagree with it because. But I didn't have anything to lose. I was just doing what I thought was right.
Okay. Having served in the Senate, is there anything that you would do differently as a university president?
I gave the governor more attention than I did. Now, Governor Keating and I are still great personal friends. We exchange emails and so on. He was very good. But they have more power. They say in Oklahoma that the governor is a very weak governor. That's the way they characterize it. But the governor's still the governor. And if I were to do it over again, there would be more social occasions and football games where they were down on the field recognizing the homecoming queen or that sort of stuff. I would do a better job in that department, no question about it.
If you would consider both a bureaucracy, compare the bureaucracy of higher education with the bureaucracy of state government.
There's no question that higher ed has a greater bureaucracy than state government because they serve at will. I don't know whether if I told this story, then you can stop me or whatever, about the hearing where I was chairing about higher ed, and they talked about the people who had been tenured at Oklahoma State. So in essence, I'll just cook it right down to the bottom. This group who felt that there's always groups that think the university is a bunch of fat cats and they're not working and they should be teaching at least 9 hours. I mean, come on, give me a break. You know, teaching 6 hours, and you say that's a that is their opinion. And so I was chairing a committee that used. No, I won't go there. But anyway, there was another little appropriation thing that I had some influence on. And the bottom line of it all was, so this group came to testify, and I think they picked out English, political science, and I think philosophy. The people who had been tenured at Oklahoma State. And the referee journal articles that they had written, and how many times they had been cited in this citation index. And they concluded it all by saying, you are giving people tenure writing articles for which no one else ever reads. So that gives you a sense of it can get pretty bare knuckle in the legislature when you're talking about money. Well, do you guys really need more money, or should these guys be teaching more? And they knew what their teaching loads were and thought that they were not appropriate. It should be much heavier.
I didn't know they did that level of research.
I didn't either. I didn't either. I was woefully unprepared.
Okay. What are your thoughts about politicians becoming university presidents and vice versa? University presidents becoming elected politicians. I think we see a trend
Well, yes,
here,
no question.
and have for a while.
Yes.
It's not new.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
I think, I ran because you can't bitch from the bleachers. If you say that to your students, you have to be able to live what you say is appropriate. I think we've been really blessed to have President Harris. I think she's just done a spectacular job. Okay. But it really all boils down to the character and the real passion of that person. And can you sense that in that individual? They're not in it for the money, they're in to really try to have an impact on this generation and future generations. And how you measure that, I don't know. But you can see people who, once they become president, they start adding people around them. I don't know, President Bourne had 18 direct reports or something like this. So you can sense that to me, everything is trivial compared to interacting with that individual, and I don't care what they've been doing. Do they have that? When we went to New Mexico, it was just wonderful. It's the poorest county in the state of the United States, and lots of Hispanics and so on. It was just nirvana because we thought we were having somewhat of an impact. When we came here, we thought we were having somewhat of an impact. And I guess it was Bunk who said, "You're the hardest guy to give a raise to I've ever had work for me." And that's not self-love. It just didn't make a difference to me. I was not. We had other things that were much more important, and we had enough to eat, and we had a place to live, and so on. So, okay. So that was. I think you have to sense that in that person.
Okay. What concerns you most about higher education policy in Oklahoma?
Well, I begin with the state regions. They're the oversight body for all of higher education in Oklahoma. And I think they're too insulated. Great admirer of Glenn Johnson, who's been chancellor for a long, long time. He was a Democratic Speaker of the House. Very, very talented and gifted individual. I was actually approached about being a candidate for chancellor. Was briefly, not that I really meant it, but the board asked me to do that because they were afraid they're going to hire somebody else. And they thought they couldn't hire somebody else if I were a candidate. Thank God I didn't get it. But at any rate, but I think there's two. They are an important body that you rarely sort of feel their influence. And I think they have grown a bureaucracy that's much, much larger than it needs to be. So I would begin with that. And I think you can't, in Texas they could not shut down Sol Ross. So that tells you that it's almost impossible to shut down a university. But if you see the migration patterns of population in Oklahoma, there's many, many counties that have 10,000 or fewer people in them. And so we have a multiplicity of of educational institutions. Now, if you're in one of those towns, you say, if we don't have higher education, we are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have a public school, we are dead. So if you're representing them, you have to die on the railroad tracks
Mm-hmm.
to keep that from happening. I understand that. So that's why it's sort of like when we started NOC, I told the board, okay, I'm going to be done. Probably didn't know, but I said, I'm going to be done. Okay. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed it, etc. But we need to have a branch of NOC. And I said the faculty's going to fight it tooth and toe, absolutely tooth and toe. Okay, they should. Okay, I'm not taking that away from them. And so there needs to be some way to rationalize the systems that we have. Now, if you put, for a while, they thought about putting Langston under my aegis when I was president. And I said, Average ACT at Langston at that time was like 16. There are challenges, but somebody's going to have to. If we continue to have the Tulsa Metroplex and the Oklahoma City Metroplex now have about 2/3 of the population, about a million, not quite, but I mean that kind of numbers, a little more than a million, a little more than a million, 1.3 million, 2, or something like that. So that's just continuing. It's just going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to do something about that system. What do you do with Panhandle State? And I think that electronics can contribute to that solution. And I think we need a new group of people associated with the state regions that are of the current generation, and how the current generation really accesses information, etc., rather than the old model that I embraced and others embrace. We must have a new model that takes into account all these things that my grandchildren do that I rarely do, but they access information decidedly different than I do. And they take things online. My granddaughters took courses online while they were here, and I must confess I had great difficulty accepting that the academic quality of those was equivalent to what the experience they would have had in the classroom. But that's balderdash because they believe in it, and so we are going to have to somehow infuse that into our system.
Well, some of these colleges started out as 2-year colleges,
for sure,
and then became 4-year. So.
And if you're there, you want to do it.
You want that.
I'm not. It's just like, don't criticize the trial lawyers, criticize the people who make the laws.
Right. Okay. So now we can move to the reflection questions.
Sure.
All right.
It's 12:15. I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. Let's knock it out.
Okay. All right. So I want to just hear your thoughts about some of your experiences and how you think that influenced your presidencies, maybe your Senate too. So let's start with your military experience, and how do you think that influenced your presidencies?
I'm going to give you a different answer.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I thought that fate had not treated me kindly. We were extremely poor, occasions when we weren't certain of what we were going to eat, etc. And that was a tremendous blessing. Didn't realize it at the time. It was a big blessing. My mother was an outstanding individual, persevered in the face of great adversity, set a good example. And so I would say the not having running water, not having a car, not really owning our house, all that sort of business was excellent for me in terms of giving me a proper outlook for students who were coming from similar trying circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So that I don't think there's any question. I was very fortunate there. Didn't know it, but was very fortunate.
Okay. What about your
Military service?
Sure, you could. Yeah, I mean, it certainly it enabled you to get your education, which you
I got
wouldn't.
I got the GI Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't have.
And see, I had I mean, the essence of it was so I'm sure I said this. So we had 39 people in the room, and they said we're going to go to King of the Hill. Okay, and then they took me and Wallace Johnson, so then we went to the University of Indiana. I had never. It's a beautiful place. It's a wonderful place. And so I took some extra courses while I was there. In other words, we were doing this, but on Saturdays I was sitting around there with nothing to do. So I'd take some courses or whatever, find something, an evening course, whatever. And so I left the University of Indiana convinced that universities were wonderful places, and I needed to get a college degree. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. So that was it was spectacular.
What about your chemical engineering background and how it influenced your presidencies, your leadership?
So they were at the Iowa State lady that visited with me yesterday. Said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I walked over. I don't know why they told you this. I walked over to the place where the students got jobs interviews and so on. And I said to the lady there, what was the highest starting salary for any undergraduate degree last year? She said, chemical engineering. I said, I'm a chemical engineer. So that was, it was solely based upon, Ann always says if we had had money, I'd have been a historian. Okay. Because I like reading biographies and that sort of stuff, and watch C-SPAN. But being with Exxon was very good. They had sufficient courage to tell you very early, we don't think you're going to be a success. And therefore, as I said to Bert Franken, which I probably shared with you, here's 3 months of salary, and we wish you the very best. And initially I said, oh my gosh, okay, that sort of makes you sit up straight in your chair. But then you say, wasn't that courageous of them to do that? To not waste his time. And I'll bet you he worked a lot harder the next time. And here he is, a very young man, and he doesn't really have to tell anybody about that. He can say, I didn't really like it at Exxon. So having the courage to tell people who are miserable in their current job that I'm not going to leave you there. We're going to facilitate your departure.
Okay. What about your research experience?
Oh my. I'm sure I said, I think the first 6 proposals I wrote were all turned down. And in retrospect, it was good, and that I probably should have done better or whatever. Then when I had to work with Kalmaner, it was not something that I was excited about, but there was money there. And then suddenly I had more money than I could shovel into the corners. I mean, it was amazing. And then when I got the money from the Cotton Incorporated and from the Coast Guard and all that sort of business, and I got my little consulting company going. And we were just in hog heaven. I mean, I was making money, and Ann was getting her. She attended junior college, so she went and got her degree. And we were in hog heaven. We had an Airstream trailer. I mean, life was really good. So it was the research. Once we got over, I got an National Science Foundation grant. Let's see, I had all this repetitions. They named 3 people at the university as outstanding teachers. I was one of those. I got to visit with the president.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm not sitting here and telling you this is really wonderful, this is what's wrong here, and this is what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things were very positive for me. All of them spun out of the fact that I kept grinding away on it when people kept telling me no in terms of funding my research requests.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Good experience for
life lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still have opportunities to teach or lecture or speak?
No, speak. I mean,
Speaking.
Yeah, but when I was teaching in the International Studies program, need to say this delicately, but we had some older individuals who came and talked. And I remember sitting there such that I could see the students while they were talking. And so I realized that now applies to me. Nothing bad about the students or the person talking or anything like that. The awe of gray hair is not something that you readily observe in the current batch of students.
Okay. Okay, you said there's bucket loads of plaques and whatnot, and I'm sure I don't have any kind of a complete list of your awards and honors. So
that doesn't ring my bell.
How about the Henry Bennett Distinguished Service Award, the highest humanitarian award for OSU? Does that one ring a bell?
The answer to that's got to be a big, bold yes. Right? but Ann and I really got that degree. I really got that.
Mm-hmm.
And none of this would have happened without Ann. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So, although you've been kind enough to interview me, and I've been flattered by that,
I did interview Ann.
Yeah,
I probably should have interviewed her more than once too.
So in any event, that's wonderful, and the two things amazingly are interesting, are meaningful to us that you might not initially suspect. The area there to the west of the Student Union, where they have the little round thing and the flowers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Along with many others, Ann and I were associated with that effort. And so there's a little brick there that's got our names, President Halligan, First Lady Ann Halligan. And those mean a lot to us. They just do. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the Henry G. statue out here has our names there. Yes. And so those things mean a lot to us. We were showered in New Mexico with citations of various kinds. And so after a while, their impact diminishes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I could see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you still appreciate the thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when I was in the Senate, I said, they asked me whether I'd like to chair the Senate. And I said no. Mm-hmm. I said, there's some young people here that'll have their picture taken, be in their hometown newspaper, et cetera, and it'll help them in their careers. It's a big deal for mm-hmm. them. And I said, it is not a big deal for me. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I didn't do it.
Okay. Okay, now I think we're down to where we can wrap up. I just have a few more things
Sure,
to
that's
touch
fine.
on.
No,
Okay.
I'm flattered, please. I just don't want you to miss it out on lunch or whatever.
I have a flexible
Okay.
schedule, so
All right.
it's fine.
I'm going to McDonald's after this.
What would you like to see for OSU?
Well, I sort of scared the pants off of David Bourne one time. And Anne would just shudder if she knew I was going to say this, but I'll say it anyway. A law school. To sort of fully complete the array of significant programs, I think it would be good for OSU to have a law school. And so I think we need I'm hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful that the university will continue to, in some way, embrace the Robin Hood philosophy. Few people, I think, know enough about what a school should cost that they carefully investigate that. The parents come with their most precious commodity, a child in tow, and they get a feeling while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not it's a safe and secure place
Mm-hmm.
for them to be, and will they not go crazy while they're there? Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That they will learn something about the world and not be hurt during the process. And then how much it actually costs, that's something they try to figure out, so to speak. So I hope that they'll continue to be sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the university needs to be larger. I think it needs to grow. And that is there's nothing like a scholarship that makes mother proud of her son or daughter at the bridge table than saying, Jenny has just been offered a scholarship from OSU.
Mm-hmm.
They may have a lot of money, but and they could easily pay for it. That isn't what's important. The importance is that their daughters being recognized. So I hope we continue to recognize what I think is an obvious truth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you've been in Stillwater a while. What would you like to see for Stillwater?
We need additional industry to try to fade that transfer of uncompensated care.
Mm-hmm.
We need some additional guys, additional activities in town. Well, we have been here. We got OSCO, which is the Spirit Airlines now purchased OSCO, but the airplane manufacturing facility. That's the only thing of real significance that occurred while I was president. I worked hard on that when I was in the Senate. The guy flew from Amsterdam, and I took him down to see Mary, Governor Fallon, and we had a dinner at the ranch, and I had asked President Hargis to have extra waiters there and have one just standing there for this individual, because he was used to excellent service, and we wanted to make certain we provided that, and so we got it. But we can't come to full flower just based upon having SMC as the second biggest entity in our community, Stillwater Medical Center.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to fade that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we've made very little progress in that area.
Okay. What advice would you give to people who aspire to the upper echelons of higher education administration?
Well, I think I've said this before, go to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need, and there are headhunters, there still are, that's their job. And you need to get to know the headhunter. I mean, I always sort of felt confident that I could get another job pretty quickly. Because I knew the headhunters well. They'd call me and say, gee, I'm having trouble getting a coterie of people for this job, and come on, Jim, you at least stop and talk to these people. And then I'd say, you know, it's getting a little rocky here. I'm going to have to play for all the marbles, and so I may be looking for a job. And they said, well, we got this and this and this, you know. And so I always was, I never wanted to feel that I was tied down to a job. And so that meant that I had to develop that relationship, which I did, and nurtured it over a period of time. And I was talking to someone recently and said, that's what you got to do. And he said, well, how the hell did you do it? And I said, well, I went down to Dallas and said, it's Heidrick and Struggles, where are they at? I found them, went in, said, hello, how are you?
You make it sound easy. Okay, you mentioned Casey Shrum.
Yes.
Earlier. Let's circle back to Dr. Shrum a minute. What do you want to say about her in our interview here?
Well, I'm not trying to step on President Hargiss's prerogatives, but I just think she'd be a marvelous president in the future of Oklahoma State University. I just like everything about her. She's tough. She can get in there and get her way. It's not for me to report here, but she has played for all the marbles. She said it's either my way or the highway, and I'm ready to go the highway. So please consider my way. I admire that. I think any administrator worth their salt has got to be able to do that. And and she has the right kind of background. I hope I can do this. She has like 6 children she's adopted, multi-race people and so on. She has her record with respect to trying to make the world a better place is just intact. And she circulates in society. She really makes a good impression. She's just I'm just all in. I'm all in on Casey Shrum, and I hope they don't lose her, which I think is the greatest risk. Because before too long now, she's got that new initiative with the Cherokees. Okay, she got that going, so she's got something going there. Okay, but other people are going to see that, and they're going to say,
"Yeah, she has a stellar resume."
She really does. Yeah, and so I hope she's fully appreciated.
Okay. Okay, that's great. I wanted to get that in. I know you have something to share there.
Hey.
Are there any topics that come to your mind that you think we just did not hit at all?
Oh my gosh. I must say, it's been a delightful experience, getting to know you and having this. It's been spectacular. But I never envisioned at the beginning that that I would impose on you for this long a period of time. I mean, so I don't. I'm flattered and all this sort of business. But no, I think
we covered
the cup is empty.
Well, I'm really honored to have had this time with you. Sure. To really have these in-depth interviews. Yeah. I mean, this is really it's kind of life interviewing. And it's been very interesting and insightful and valuable to have that. So I appreciate your time. And
all right.
this,
Thank you.
and I think we'll be in touch again with paperwork and
There you
what
go.
we need
Whatever,
to do.
sure.
So
Sure.
thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been my honor. Thank you.